What's up, guys? Welcome back to Almost Functional 40K. Today we're going to be diving back into the Pariah Nexus mission pack. Today we're actually going to be going over the primary missions in the new pack. So feel free to like and subscribe, share the videos, just help me get this content out to more people. But with that, I'm not going to waste any more of your time, so we're just going to jump right into the cards. So the first one is Take and Hold, which is one we had in the last one. It's just starting second battle round in your command phase, or the end of your turn if it's the fifth battle round and you're going second. You get five victory points for each objective mark you control, up to 15. Pretty standard, nothing really complicated about this. This is one of the ones where the missions in your deployment zone do count. So there's not much more to go over on this one. We've all played that one quite a few times. Next up, we have the Ritual. When setting up the battlefield, remove all objective markers in no man's land except the one closest to the center of the battlefield. That's the same as it was before. Action. So we now actually have actions, which I'll go over in another video when I break down more of the actually how everything works. But so you do the action, start of your shooting phase, one unit from your army, and it completes at the end of your turn. You set up one objective marker anywhere on the battlefield, wholly within no man's land, and within 1 inch of your unit, provided it can be set up exactly 12 inches from one other objective marker within no man's land, and not within 6 inches of any other objective markers. So it has to be within 12 inches of another marker in no man's land, and within 1 inches of one of your units. And it has to be wholly in no man's land. So it's a little more restrictive than the old one. The old one was only 9 inches from, or within 9 inches of another objective, so you're not going to be able to place as many. I think that's good. This one was got a little out of hand sometimes in certain missions, certain matchups. So restricting this, I think, isn't a bad thing. Then scoring, second battle round onward into each command phase, or end of the command phase, or the end of your turn. If it's fifth battle round, you go second. You score 5 VP for each objective marker in no man's land, up to 15. So once again, you get 5 per, up to 15. Any objectives in your deployment zone or your opponent's deployment zone don't score, other than for any secondaries. So on this one, you only can score the objectives in no man's land, but other than the change to the restriction of where objectives can be placed when you make new ones, this one plays very similar to how it played in the last deck. Next up, we have Unexploded Ordnance. So this one is the objective marker that starts the battle in no man's land are hazard objective markers. All right, so not the ones in your deployments, but the one in the middle. Action, start of your shooting phase. One or more units from your army, each within range of a distant hazard marker, and completes at the end of your turn. If the unit performs this action, it's still within range of the same hazard objective marker, and you control that objective marker. You can move each of those hazard objective markers up to 6 inches. When doing so, the objective marker cannot end that move on top of any other objective marker or model or inside impassable parts of terrain features. All right, so this is like servo skulls from the last one. Basically, I like to call it soccer. Now you actually have to do an action instead of just controlling it at the end of the turn. So it's a little more restrictive on how you can move it and when you can move it. So that's good, but still, if you get middle and start moving first, I think that is a big advantage. And then the scoring, second battle round onward, end of each player's turn. The players whose turn it is scores VP as follows: 8 for each objective marker that is wholly within their opponent's deployment zone, 5 for each other hazard objective marker that is wholly within 6 inches of their opponent's deployment zone, and 2 for each hazard objective marker that is wholly within 12 of their opponent's deployment zone. All right, so you get 8 if you get the objective into your opponent's zone, 5 if it's within 6 of their deployment zone, and 2 if it's within 12. And this happens in your win scoring. End of each player's turn. So this is definitely still heavily favors going first, because you kick it over, get points, they kick it back, it's in the middle, you can't get points. It also depends on the deployment. Certain deployments are closer to the center, to the objectives than others. But this one, I believe, heavily favors going first and having units that can move up and get that action done early. So other than it's an action, so it's going to restrict a little bit what units can do it instead of just happening at the end of the turn when you control it. This still plays very similar to how it did before. All right, next up we have Lynch Pin. So this one, second battle or onwards, end of the command phase or end of your turn if it's the fifth battle round and you're going second. If the player whose turn it is does not control the objective marker in their deployment zone, they score 3 VP for each objective marker they control. Or if the player whose turn it is controls the objective marker in their deployment zone, they score 3 for controlling that objective marker and 5 for each other objective marker they control. All right, so this one just really emphasizes holding your home objective. Because if you hold your home objective, you get 3 VP for that, and each other objective you control is worth 5 instead of 3. So this is a mission where if you're able to take your opponent's home objective, it really swings the battle in your favor. I think most of the time in most balanced matchups, you don't really lose your home objective, and if you do, it's late game. So I think for most of the game, this will be just you scoring 3 and you're both scoring 5 on objectives, and then maybe late game you can swing this to pull out a victory. So I like it. It's can end up playing very similar to most regular missions if you can't take each other's home objectives. But if you are able to pull that off, I think the score could swing heavily in the last turn or two. So it's nice to see a slight different wrinkle in there, but it's not anything too crazy, I don't think. Next up, we have Scorched Earth. So you have an action you can do, burn objective. Starts your shooting phase from the second battle round onward. All right, so you can't do this turn one. One unit from your army within range of an objective marker that is not within your deployment zone, and it completes end of your opponent's next turn or end of the battle, whichever comes first. If your student still within range of that objective marker, you control that objective marker. If completed, if you're still within range of it and you control it. If completed, that objective marker is burned and removed from the battlefield. All right. So you can't do the one in your deployment zone, but you can do the one in anyone in no man's land and your opponent's. And it completes at the end of your opponent's turn, so you have to last through your opponent's whole turn after you do the action. And then second battle rounds onward, anytime. Each time a player whose turn is burns an objective marker, that player scores 5 VP if that objective marker was in no man's land, or 10 VP if that objective marker was in their opponent's deployment zone. All right, so you get 5 VP for burning objective in no man's land, 10 for burning one in your opponent's deployment zone. And then the regular scoring is end of the command phase or end of your turn if it's fifth battle round and you're going second. The players whose turn is scores 5 VP for each objective marker they control, up to 10. All right, so you can only get points for scoring up to 2 objective markers a turn. But I would be careful burning objectives that you can hold through your opponent's turn because they'll go away. And if you think you can hold it for multiple turns, you'll get more points for sitting on it and holding it a couple turns than just burning it once. So that's something you have to weigh out. If you think you're only going to have it that limited time and they're going to take it back, burn it, get the points. If it's something you think you can control most of the game, maybe wait till late game to burn it or don't burn it at all. I like this one. This is adds a lot of flair, and you can only score 10 VP per turn, so this is really going to keep games close unless you're able to start burning objective markers those last couple turns. All right, and then the next one we have is Supply Drop. This is something we had in Leviathan. Start of battle, random players randomly select 2 different objective markers in no man's land. The first is the Alpha, the second is Omega. At the start of the 4th battle round, the Alphas are moved. At the start of the 5th battle round, all objectives in no man's land apart from Omega are moved. So that's exactly how it was before. Second battle round onward, end of command phase, or end of your turn if it's 5th and you're going second. Player's turn scores the following VP for each objective marker they control. Second and third battle rounds 5 VP, 4th battle round 8, 5th battle round 50. All right, so this is exactly the same as it was. You slowly get less and less objectives, and they get worth more and more points. And if you're able to control the 15 point at the end of the game and your opponent isn't, that could really swing that game last turn. So this one, you really have to be thinking about where you want to be towards the end of the game and planning for it. Luckily, it's not random, so you know where those objectives are going to be and when it's going to happen. But all right, so next up we have Purge the Foe, another Leviathan mission again. So that any battle round, win, end of the battle round. Each player scores 4 BP if one or more enemy units were destroyed this battle round. Second battle round onward, end of the battle round. Each player scores 4 BP if more enemy units or friendly units were destroyed that battle round. All right, so you can get 4 VP turn 1 if you kill an enemy unit. You can't get the 8 points for killing more turn 1. Starting turn 2, you can get points for killing more. All right, so that's a slight change. And then the second battle onward, end of command phase or end of your turn, you get 4 for controlling objective, and then 4 if you control more. All right, so the second half's the same. The only difference here is you can't score the 8 turn 1 just for killing 1 unit and your opponent not killing anything. You're limited to only being able to score 4 VP turn 1 for killing a unit. And then second battle round on, that's when killing more comes in. I like that. That's a little more. I think that stops people from really skewing the game early if they're able to hide their whole army, force their opponent to go first, and pop out, kill one little Nurgling squad, one little scout squad, and all of a sudden they have an 8-point lead. So I really think that was a needed change, and I think that balances the mission a little bit. But I always like Purge the Foe because it's a big change from just the standard missions we normally see, and it's a tail back to old ITC when it first started, kill, hold more. All right, so the next up we have Burden of Trust. Second battle round onward, end of command phase or end of your turn. If it's the 5th battle round, you're going second. The player whose turn it is scores 4 VP for each objective marker they control that is not within their deployment zone. Then for each objective marker that player controls, they can select 1 unit from their army, excluding aircraft, that's within range of the objective marker, guard it until the start of their next turn. All right, so you get 4 VP for each objective marker you control at the end of your command phase, and you can choose units to guard it. Now, what does that do? Second battle round, end of each player's turn. The opponent of the player's turn scores 2 VP for each of their units, excluding battle shock units that are within range of and guarding an objective marker they control. So if you are able to hold the objective through your opponent's turn, still have control of it, and have your guarding unit on it and not battle shocked, you get an additional 2 VP, which means you can potentially score 6 VP per objective per turn. I like that. That's a nice little twist. So they're adding a lot of extra little things to some of these, just to add a little spice, some extra things to think about that favors certain armies and change others. All right, then the last mission we have is Terraform. Terraform is an action you do in your shooting phase. 1 or more units from your army, each within range of a different objective marker that is not within your deployment zone and has not been terraformed. End of your opponent's next turn or the end of the battle, whichever comes first. If the unit performing this action is still within range of the same objective marker and you control that objective marker is terraformed. All right, so you can do an action. You have to live through your opponent's turn. Or if you're going second, it's turn 5, you could just complete it at the end of the game. You terraform the objective. And then second battle round onwards, end of the command phase or end of your turn. If it's the 5th battle round and you are going second, the player whose turn it scores VP as follows, up to 15 per turn. 4 for each objective marker they control, 2 VP for each objective marker they have terraformed during the battle. So it looks like if you terraform an objective, you could just score 2 for it for the rest of the game. Even if your opponent controls it, then they'd score 4 and you'd score 2. And if you control it and terraformed it, you'd get 6. All right, so that's interesting. So if you can push up and terraform something early, even if you lose it, it's scoring you points for the rest of the game. The above VP are cumulative, so player controls 1 objective marker that they also terraform. Yeah, that's I figured. So that's really cool. So that and the guard one give you guarding objective ones, which was Burden of Trust, give you extra ways to score 2 points. And that is all of the primary missions for the Pariah Nexus. So far, I am really liking the changes. Some of the missions are the same, ones we've known and liked, and pretty balanced. A couple others had some changes, I believe, to make them more balanced and fair and not quite as skewed in certain matchups. And then the new ones add some extra things to think about, some new wrinkles, strategies, and tactics. So it's not just the same thing every single mission. But so far, I'm liking the new deployments, the new missions. I'll be back with the new mission rules, and then we'll break down the new layouts and all that coming up. But once again, thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you next time.